I think they're going to be game changing.
Hi there and welcome to From Ideas from Results. My name is Luke and I'm joined by Chris, who's from our data team, and we're going to be exploring all the things in the world of data that have been happening in the last 30 to 60 days and see how you can take those back to your business and improve your marketing performance. So diving straight in, we've been working on a dashboard project for our clients, but more broadly, this is about kind of visualization of data and how GA4 when it comes to visualization of data, but also any limitations that it might have as well.
So GA4 technically has more opportunities to visualize things in really good ways. It essentially brings explorations, which is a version that was only available in the paid version of Universal Analytics. However, it's quite limited in where you can do that. So first of all, a setup is a little bit clunky. For some reason, they make you add all the dimensions and metrics to then use them in your visualization when they're there already. But also you can only visualize one thing at a time. Right. So quite often you might want to see a trend line, a table underneath it, and you can't do that in Exploration. So I have to do one on one page, another on another page, which when you're analyzing things just means that you're having to jump around a little bit more than you could do if you put it in Looker Studio or Tableau or one of those kind of visualization tools.
So if I'm using a sort of an external tool like Dashboard, we can actually then design something that has all those visualizations in one place.
Exactly.
And how does sort of GA4 deal with the likes of targets? Can you kind of, because it's great knowing the data and saying kind of where that performance is, but then it's like, how's that compare against where I want to be and where I should be? And is that possible in GA4?
Within the visualization, not at all. You could, if you knew all of your targets at the point when all the actions happened, you could try and get something in there, but nobody can do that. So using an external tool is really important if you want to compare things against targets. And actually that's been a big focus of some of our recent dashboard projects. It's making sure that all those targets are actually known and agreed and people are working specifically on those, and then bringing that in against the performance so you can visualize it.
And broadly speaking, with GA4, is it, in terms of recommendations for using it, is it something that you feel that people could use standalone and generally do okay with, or do you feel that there's a kind of, it will get you so far, but actually you need to kind of look at that, an external dashboard to kind of to make that more meaningful?
It has got some good things in it. You can certainly look at top level information, make some comparisons. Generally, you will need to use a visualization tool to really break that down. If you have a really good understanding of what it is you're looking for, quite often you'll come into some stumbling points in GA4. I think the one thing that you'll get from GA4 that you can't really get anywhere else is you can drill down to user level reports in a way that you couldn't do unless you had something like BigQuery, and then you could start drilling down at that level. But for the average user that isn't using BigQuery, isn't using the paid version of GA4, an external tool is going to be really important.
Again, I'm right in saying that actually you can import other data sets into that external tool so that you're combining a combination of GA4 data, but potentially things from other channels, which again, is quite important as well.
Yeah, it could be just as simple as what are my costs on Facebook, Google Ads, and other paid platforms all in one place. It's the sort of thing that you could blend easily using something like Looker Studio or other tools.
Okay, so moving on. So we've got the Data GPT project that you've been working on with one of our sort of larger clients. This is really interesting. So this is kind of, we're talking a lot about AI. This is something that has been big in 2024, going to be massive in 2025. Can you give us a bit of an overview of what the project is, what you've been doing, and essentially why you feel it's so important?
AI for analysis is game-changing. Amount of time and effort that goes into analyzing all of the different potential granular impacts on things is unachievable in many cases. And what AI can do is it can break things down in an amazingly granular way, which is going to be game-changing. For now, the challenges with AI is, do you have the right foundations? That's always going to be key. But also, does the LLM, the large language model, have the right instructions? Has the schema been set up correctly? And one of the things that Data GPT does is it gives you access to set all of those things up. They do also have a support service that can help you get all of that right, build the SQL, build the schemas, build the LLM instructions that all go into that, and the flexibility of thresholds and targets and all those things that you can build into that platform mean that you can give it the context for it to be useful.
So I've always found when I'm using ChatGPT for trying to use it for data analysis, sometimes it's difficult because it doesn't know what necessarily the column headers mean in context. But what you're saying actually with Data GPT is that you can actually program that context in. I'm guessing it's quite a significant setup time in order to kind of make that happen.
There is effort put into that, but it's effort that's worthwhile. A lot of effort both in just understanding that context, and do you have that context from all of the users? Because you obviously have your analysts and they'll have their ways of working that'll be quite different to the average day-to-day user. So taking the time and effort to give it that context, and also to build a prompt library.
And so what sort of output do you get from Data GPT, and who's that useful for?
So outputs can range from anything to what you're probably used to in something like ChatGPT, which is ask a question and it gives me a text output of here's some interesting bits of information, but that is based off of your data. And it can break things down. You can ask it questions like, what is driving my growth? And it can give you the top 5 things that are driving that growth. One of the things that's particularly good about Data GPT compared to other AI platforms is it can also visualize that in tables. It can give you graphs. And that's one of the key components that is missing from AI. So the few things in Vertex, which is the GCP, AI Studio, and it would give you interesting things, but you then have to go and find the ways of showing that, because when you explain that to somebody else, oh, this happened, you then want to back that up with something rather than just, I've got a sentence that this thing is happening over here. It's like, oh, show me that and show me why it changed. And that's what this platform does.
Looking forward to this kind of 2025, what's your thoughts on how this type of platform will be kind of part of the marketing mix and sort of the analysis suites that we use?
I think they're going to be game changing. They're going to be game changing on 2 sides. It's one, those light touch users that right now struggle to use analytics. Either they don't feel like they understand the data platforms, but more importantly, they don't know where to go. Now they'll be able to just use natural language and it will give an output that will quite often, with that right context, be really relevant to them. And then for those guys that are true analysts, actually they can deep dive into a level of granularity that they would really struggle to at the moment.
Is there a risk that rubbish in, rubbish out, like the whole concept of data? And that's always a standard problem anyway. So ignoring AI, like if you've got the wrong data, you've got the wrong data and you're going to see the wrong information. But does this potentially increase the risks of that because you're sort of one step removed from the data perhaps?
It can do. I think you would always, as with so many of these things, want to have another way of getting to that data, and the QA processes that go into making sure the AI is giving good outputs is really key. The finance industry has been using AI for trading for years, and those traders are not just letting AI go and do its own thing, they are monitoring its outputs. You've got those power users saying, actually something's not quite right, it's giving some odd outputs, we should stop using this, let's put pause on it while we figure out what's going on there.
And so potentially more control around the input, so QAing on the way in, got to be much more diligent about the content that we're putting into it.
Absolutely.
And accuracy wise.
Yes, and also the prompts. A part of what we are doing a lot of is actually looking at the prompts and monitoring those prompts and saying, if this is the language that people are using, either should we train them to use different language, or should we train the LLM to understand that language better?
Putting you on the spot, what's your kind of prediction for 2025 in terms of how prevalent this type of thing is going to become in sort of everyday marketeers, like in our worlds? Like, because this is at the moment, it's kind of more sort of enterprise level, like to a degree, but like how much kind of market sort of saturation do you think that there will be?
I think it will be big. Whether it's going to be this year or it's going to be the tail end of this year and next year, I think they're going to be massive. The changes coming in for things like Gemini this year are going to be huge. Just the general understanding that these AI systems are building are huge, as well as the providers that are making use of those are understanding how to use them and building those models. So for the average user, it's going to be much easier once they've done it for the enterprise. Yes, actually it then will be much easier, and rather than learning this stuff and figuring out what matters, half of that will be done. You're adding a bit of context. I think there's always going to be a need to add, this is what matters for me, this is this custom dimension over here means because
this means this to SGM means sleeping giant media, like that context that it may not have.
And these items are high margin, those items are low margin. So just because there's more revenue coming from them, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's driving my bottom line. Those sorts of things are always going to be important to include.
That is super exciting. If you found that interesting, we have got another talk coming up on the 23rd of January where we're going to be exploring the marketing world for 2025. One of those sections we're going to cover off is going to be with data, and we're going to be exploring all the exciting things that are happening. So if you're available, do check out our website, sign up for that, and we'll see you again soon.